It's a new morning in August here on Bird Creek. It's cool outside, a great time to take a walk in nature. Begin the day with appreciation for the beauty that surrounds us. We're here with Trish Carney, a creative and very caring visual artist, to hear stories about her wildlife encounters and the reason she's so passionate about her relationship with nature. Trish is a photographer and volunteer for Wild Care, Wildlife Rehabilitation and Nature Education Center in California. You'll recognize Trish's beautiful photographs in Coyote Dreams. She's responsible for the stunning shots of the Marin County coyote and all the other really good photographs you see in that feature. Trish has spent years looking for, caring for, and taking pictures of wildlife. Trish, hello and welcome.
Hello, Gina. Good day to you.
Well, good day to you. Now, Trish, can you tell us what inspired you to get behind the camera, and then what inspired you to become an advocate for the animal stars that you photograph?
I've been photographing for a long time. I got my first camera when I was a teen in suburban Chicago, my first 35 millimeter film camera. So I've been at it for a while, but it wasn't until about 4, maybe 5 years ago that I began to focus solely on animals and on wildlife. And I've always been interested in relationships between humans and wildlife and how we look at, how we think, how we feel about animals. But ultimately it was the feeling of being too far removed from nature that became the catalyst for taking my camera and hitting the trails. And I was really interested in experiencing wildlife on its own terms, in its own habitat, both locally and afar. And I took some backpacking trips to Yellowstone, Alaska, and then a fantastic 6-week trip to Kenya and Tanzania that sharpened my focus and truly ignited my passions. And my passions boil down to two things. And the first one being a deep belief that we need wildlife and that we need to learn how to deal with them, to learn how to respect them, and to learn how to keep our lives and their lives in balance and commit to making sure that there is room both for wildlife and for us. And secondly, I have a huge lust for creating images. I want to make really interesting photographs that mean something and serve a purpose. I suppose my mission with the camera is to express in images the incredible beauty, wonder, vulnerability of the natural world, in hopes that the images help to promote a reverence and appreciation for wildlife and for our shared fate and habitat. I really believe images can be a reminder of what we take for granted and what we are at the risk of losing. A photograph can be an ambassador that can inform and bring awareness to an issue that is affecting a place or a species. And I truly believe a beautiful photograph can inform, inspire, and help people to care, and we really need to care.
Well, good points all, and I hear that you've wanted to be closer to wildlife. Now, Trish, what are your thoughts on disturbing the wildlife that you photograph? How do you manage your encounters for the least impact?
Most of my wildlife photography is about just walking and photographing whatever I encounter. And it's more about the fleeting moment and chance encounters of who I may meet on the trails versus tracking or stalking an animal. And when I see an animal that is heading in my direction, I usually just stop and stay put and stay visible and let the animal approach me. Sometimes this takes a while and my hike turns into more of a very long sit. But what I like about doing this is that it feels more organic, and the longer I have the opportunity to observe the animal, the more in tune I feel with its behavior, and also I have more time to compose my shots. And one aspect of photography is the delicate balance of learning how to invade, in a sense, a subject's privacy with the ultimate respect. And even when you have the permission, you should always be respectful. And so it is absolutely crucial to respect your subject and their surroundings. I respect distance. I never cut off an animal's path. I never harass and never chase an animal. And I read their body language and pay close attention to their back off signals.
Well, that's really responsible. I would wish that same approach and philosophy for sound recordists. There are a lot of people out there that bring these images and this sense of nature to us, and they do disturb the animals. So thank you from the whole animal kingdom. With your uncanny ability to find wildlife around every corner, I'm hoping that you have one or two stories that you can tell us, stories that connect our listeners to how you feel about nature, about your personal relationship with it.
Well, one comes to mind. Once while traipsing around Point Reyes, I was out for the first 3 hours of the day, and I was getting ready to wrap it up for the morning, but I decided to chill out and sit under a tree, which I tend to do after I've been photographing for a few hours, is I just kind of kick it for a while. And while I was sitting there, I began watching some black-tailed deer that were approaching. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a shape move, and I turned to look, and about 20 feet to my left was a fallen tree, and on top of it was a bobcat sitting there. It was so amazing. It was so beautiful, and looking right at me. I was completely mesmerized by the eye contact that we were sharing, and I know it probably was less than a minute, but it felt like all time dissolved. Eventually, I slowly raised the camera, and sure enough, that was the cue for the bobcat to move on. So no picture was had, but I walked over to the fallen tree, and on the other side of the tree was the fresh remains of an eaten bird. And I don't know how long I was sitting there in close proximity to that bobcat, obviously eating its kill. It's this type of quiet, shared moment that truly inspires me and feeds me. And I look at it as being given the great gift of nearness to a wild creature, and I savor these moments.
Let me ask you one last question, Trish, then. If there's one thing listeners could do to connect with that feeling of wild,
I would encourage folks to get outside and to create and cultivate a personal relationship with the wild, whatever that may be. And I would certainly encourage one to start local, to extend your humanity, to include respect for wildlife, the land, the trees, the rivers, oceans, and the air.
Trish, thank you so much for our conversation today. I value your contributions to Wild Sound Stories, as I know that our listeners do. Thank you so much for bringing that coyote and its nighttime, dreamtime adventure to life for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Gina.
Discover more about your place among the wild things. Support creative artists who care deeply about our natural world. Support Trish Carney by visiting trishcarney.net. That's TRISHCARNEY.net. She has stunning photographs for purchase and a beautiful book as well. Experience, explore, connect. I'm Gina Farr. Thanks for listening. This conversation is a feature of WildSoundStories.com.